Hello, lovely listeners, and welcome to this episode of the New Story Podcast with me, your host, Rebecca Conran. For those that are new to listening, since 2013, I've been a life coach, energy healer, and a astrologer. And this episode is all about the May Astrology Report. This is about what's going on in the cosmos. So I look at the mundane astrology, I look at the collective astrology, which is a lot more accurate as a horoscope because we're all the signs, we're all the planets in our charts. And what's going on is affecting all of us. And yes, sure, it affects us sometimes in different areas. It affects us maybe a little bit more intensely, but it really doesn't matter. We're connected to this energy. This energy is connected to us. And so we look at it as a whole, and the positive things that we could glean from what's happening and the shadow aspects that we can see playing out in the world. And May is definitely a very intense month. It's full of pressure points and breakthroughs, as if we haven't had enough of that already in 2026. We know that 2026 is a universal 1 year. This is a collective year of initiation, of new beginnings. But we often forget that new beginnings come with their inherent endings. Something ends so that something new can begin. And it's a painful experience, not unlike birth. And we think that we can circumvent the pain of the struggle, and we can't. We can't circumvent it. We can't get a life epidural, as it were. We have to actually, the pain is part of the experience. It's part of the breakthrough. It's part of turning a corner, learning something, allowing our rock bottoms to teach us, allowing the lessons of life to stick. And when we try to circumvent, when we try to look for quick fixes, they don't last forever. At some point, we have to do the deeper work. And I think as a woman, I feel that in some ways lucky to have been almost, well, I don't know about lucky, but to have been almost conditioned to in the practice of accepting pain, and that, pain has its cycles, right? So we think about like the menstrual cycle. I know personally, this is my experience. I'll get my period, and I know there'll be a period of pain associated with it, and I know that period of pain will pass. I know there's a period of emotional upheaval associated with it, and I know that that will pass. And if I can live in attunement with it and in care and compassion for it, it'll be a much easier process than if I try to work against my own cycles. So this is very similar this month. We have these cycles in our life, and we have to really stop and enter the red tent, as it were, really to look after ourselves while we're in this period, but also to remember that it's not going to last forever. The wheel keeps turning, the cycle keeps moving on. Every low has a high, every high has a low. And so to try to find that harmony between reaching for the extreme, I want to be happy all the time. Well, try to just live in contentment, try to live in peace, because the further that we are swinging from between extremes, I want to feel extreme joy or I don't want to feel extreme sadness, the more that we actually perpetuate being in sort of a pendulum swing. So if we can look for constant contentment, a calmness in our experience, that we're not just trying to reach for only good feelings and good experiences, that we're finding some kind of a middle ground, not a numbness, a middle ground where we're able to access both our joy and our grief without it tipping us off balance. That's really the thing to be looking for. So May 2026, it's full of pressure points, breakthroughs. It opens and closes under a full moon. So May the 1st is bringing a Scorpio full moon. This is intense, it's truth revealing, it's a lot of deep emotional processing going on. However, Uranus recently went into Gemini. That's lightened things up quite a bit. We're able to really be a bit more curious about our learning. Our intuitive insights are coming through a little bit sharper. But, this month is bookended by this emotional beginning and then almost a psychological illumination at the end of the month. So Scorpio full moons, they tend to surface what's been suppressed, especially around trust and intimacy and power dynamics. And so this is going to be starkly different from the energy at the end of the month, which is the full moon in Sagittarius on May 31st, because that's more philosophical, that's more about expansion of our spiritual life. It's about expanding perspectives and meaning, and it's almost a sense of integration at the end of this month after what will be a very, inner excavation oriented period. There's a major evolutionary pivot arriving on May the 6th, and this is Pluto stationing retrograde in Aquarius at the 6th degree, and this is marking a collective period of review and reassessment around themes of power, technology, and systemic change. Pluto often retrogrades. It's not abnormal. This is not an odd thing. It's not even a special thing. Pluto retrogrades about 6 months out of every year. However, that period of the transition, it really does sort of integrate a specific theme, and the transition can be quite difficult. So as we are in this station of the sign switching gears, that's when the power is going to be its most intense of this energy. It's a recalibration point in the very long Pluto in Aquarius cycle, which lasts about 21 years. And so there's deeper questions rising to the surface here about how we use technology, how are our communities governed, what kind of future systems are we collectively building. And retrograde Pluto is like revealing what we've already activated, but that's not stable beneath the reforms that have already been put in, or maybe there haven't been reforms, and that's what we're starting to think about. If you can think about the way that technology has expanded since 2023 too, we've had such a huge growth since then, since Pluto entered Aquarius. So we can already see these themes popping up for us. For us individually, the Sabian symbol for 6 degrees of Aquarius is a performer of a mystery play. So this image here is suggesting themes of participating in something that's bigger than yourself. It can point to playing a role in life that's carrying a deeper significance, and you might not know what that is. You might not really, it's a mystery what that deeper significance is, but then yet it is still happening. There's also an element of initiation with this degree, being part of a process of revelation, but truth is being revealed slowly. We don't know really what we're doing from the outset. We're just feeling called and pulled into something that is bigger than ourselves. So this degree, it really is about the Aquarius energy of blending individuality with collective or spiritual purpose, learning to express something meaningful through your role in the world. And I think a lot of people are really redefining what that role is. Role doesn't need to mean an identity like healer or painter or nurse or something like that. It can mean the gifts that you've learned to be a conduit from your own soul's excavation. So what I mean is, your joy is powerful for the collective, just as your ability to experience your grief is. Your role may be something that you have not given a lot of credence to, but whatever you have healed has purpose and meaning within our collective oneness, even if that's not always known by us. To expand a little further, I have lots of gifts, not to toot my own horn or anything like that. I've got lots of gifts. I'm, really good at music and really good at art and creativity, and I'm really good at working with people and public speaking. But for me, I would say that my greatest personal gift, my greatest personal role is that I am incredibly resilient. I'm incredibly resilient. The resilience in me is really what powers any gift that I'm able to express, any creativity that I'm able to express, any support and service. It comes from this place of incredible resilience. And that resilience was born from, you know, um, the experience of, sure, feeling a lot of joy and also feeling intense grief and intense sadness and intense difficulty. So when you think of what your role is in the collective, it's not necessarily, I'm good at this. It's, what are those qualities that I hold, that I've seen myself express in my life that are the magical qualities about me? Maybe it's integrity, maybe it's discernment. Who knows? But that ability to hold space for difficulty and to be resilient in the face of it is a gift that we give to the collective energetically. You might never make money from it. You might never get an award for it, but it is powerful and meaningful nonetheless. And so this Pluto in Aquarius retrograde degree is really speaking to that. So the Aries energy that we've been talking about the past few months, it continues to be highly activated this month. Neptune and Saturn are about 6 degrees apart. They're still in loose conjunction. So anytime something is activating one or the other through conjunction, this month we've got Mercury and Mars, both conjunct Chiron in Aries. Sorry, no, we've got Venus squaring both of them. So anytime that's happening, anytime there's a personal planet interacting with this conjunction, the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, it's reigniting it. So we're not done with these themes. We're still integrating, still processing, still learning more things. Aries energy is also empowered by Chiron in Aries, which is at the end of its journey through Aries right now. Chiron is the wound where the light gets in. It really is about childhood issues, past life issues. And this month, we've got both Mercury on May the 1st and Mars on May the 16th in conjunction with Chiron. That means both those planets meet Chiron at the same degree. So Mercury, Chiron, they come together, they make a super-powered planet. And then on May 16th, Mars and Chiron come together. They make a super-powered planet. These are ignition points for old identity wounds, courage thresholds, and they're here to help us heal assertion-related themes. So how we initiate, how we speak up, how we take space, how we hold our boundaries, our internal no. The Sabian symbol, a large audience confronts the stage, represents the degree of Aries 28 that all of this is happening at. And this is speaking to themes of visibility, accountability, stepping into a moment where our actions and our identity are being witnessed and evaluated. It often relates to karmic exposure, so, reaping what we sow too. What has been built privately now meets collective attention. And karma doesn't mean bad. Karma just means full circle. It means integrating something that we didn't possibly know before. It means seeing the results of our actions. So it can be very positive. We can have very positive effects from this energy. So this degree is carrying a sense of being fully seen. There's an intensity here of arrival, where our personal processes have reached a point where we can't hide them anymore. We really, everyone can see it. They're being shared, they're being experienced. We're becoming and initiating a new person within. The developmental edge here is learning to hold presence under scrutiny. You know, um, it's not negative to be seen, but sometimes it can feel very uncomfortable, because when we're letting ourselves be seen, we're allowing people in, we're letting people see our vulnerabilities, our imperfections. And sometimes it can be even worse to let people see our positive attributes and love us, because sometimes that can be actually very painful to experience if we haven't experienced it before. Being seen isn't necessarily all roses and unicorns. It's really can be a very difficult experience for us if we have had a hard time feeling loved, feeling seen and received. So this energy, where those wounds are being sort of opened up with the Chiron energy, those wounds around being seen, heard, listened to, that our feelings are valid, we deserve to share them and be heard for them, etc. And also that we need to practice that ourselves with others. Um, and it's opening up these opportunities for healing that also might be uncomfortable. It might be uncomfortable to get what we really want, to be seen and loved, and to just really be present to that process that we're going through. So there is needing to hold our presence under the scrutiny of what's going on without retreating, without fragmenting, really remaining steady and brave and courageous. The new moon, also on May 16th, is very embodied. It's bringing us back into our senses. It's bringing us back into our physical carriers. This is about presence and stability, feeling in the body, the sense of our inner feeling, our inner persona, recalibrating our values and our self-worth to ourselves. And this is where we ask ourselves, what is truly satisfying? What is truly sustaining? After all the Aries fireworks have been going off around confrontation, awareness, identity, assertion. So this one says, okay, what am I gonna plant? What's gonna take root? What will I see through now? Then comes a surge of mental and energetic volatility after the 16th, as Mercury is going to conjunct Uranus in Gemini at the 2nd degree on May the 18th, followed by Mars entering Taurus the same day. So leading up to that with that Mars energy, coming to the end of Aries, most fiery period for Mars. We can sometimes expect fireworks. We can expect people to be extra aggro, extra violent, extra intense, and we really have to check ourselves. We have to be pulling ourselves back from selfishness. And that doesn't mean, being assertive and looking after yourself is not selfish, but we do have to look at behavioral patterns if we're not necessarily leading from compassion, if we're not necessarily leading from thinking about other people. We can easily step into steamrolling with that end of Mars and Aries energy, so we need to be very mindful of that. And as Mars enters Taurus, it's a lot more grounded. Again, it's a lot more about your senses, your body. It's steady, it slows down. It's about what's rooted. Are my actions rooted in my self-worth and self-esteem and my values? Am I pushing ahead in a brazen way? And I don't have the energy to see it through because it's all impulse and no follow through. So Mars is going to really help us to ground a lot of the energy that's been pulling up. But with Mercury conjuncting Uranus, that's about sudden insights, disruptive news cycles might be going on. We might have rapid shifts in perspective, just an overload of information going on. And then shortly after that, on May 21st to the 22nd, the Sun is going to enter Gemini, and then it's going to conjunct Uranus again at the second degree of Gemini. So this is amplifying a lot of unpredictability, a lot of innovation, though, and a lot of mental stimulation and cognitive acceleration. It's a breakthrough corridor for sure. Expect insights, make that space for it. You know, if you have a daily spiritual practice, if you're a meditator, if you have an embodiment practice of stepping into this physical carrier and honoring it, being in nature, these things are really going to amplify the spiritual gifts that can come through these, insightful periods. The symbolism for the second degree of Gemini carries the theme of exchange, messaging, and how value, material or informational, is circulated through subtle or behind the scenes channels. So the core evolutionary theme of this degree is centering on how information, resources, or meaning is transmitted between people in often quiet, symbolic, or indirect ways. So here we're looking at what's being said between the lines. We're reading between the lines. We are looking for the subtle information. We're looking for the different cues that aren't necessarily the ones that are on the surface. There's an emphasis to being sensitive to nuance around this and following that those unseen currents of communication. So I think that this transit is really these transits between Mercury and the Sun and Uranus right now. They are helping to open us up to more psychic information, and which anybody is capable of. But anybody's capable of it, and not everybody's capable of discernment and integrity. People are a lot more capable of psychic information than they are being ethical or moral in their behaviors. So yes, I think this is a really wonderful corridor for refining perception, opening up to new perception, spiritual perception, and learning to trust indirect knowing, learning to trust our intuition, and hopefully avoiding scattering our energy and being superficial in our energy. But again, it's for us to do the work of being discerning and in our integrity, human values, being connected to human values. That's the most important part, because any old person can be intuitive and psychic, but it takes a special amount of love and compassion to be discerning and to live in integrity. May 22nd and May 29th, that's introducing quite a bit of tension between desire, reality, and idealization. As I mentioned earlier, Venus is going to be squaring Neptune and then Saturn, both in Aries. So our fantasies, they really need to be brought down to earth. There's a push-pull sensation to our longing and our limitations here. Relationships, finances, and value systems are going to be tested. Neptune can dissolve boundaries, sure, but it also can create confusion and a sense of illusion or disillusionment, when things don't go exactly the way we want, or if we've been seeing things as we want to see them rather than as they really are, that reality check can be quite painful. Saturn demands accountability. Saturn is the reality check. So those reality checks are going to keep on coming, and I think that's the higher octave of the conjunction between Saturn and Neptune, is rooting it's discernment again. It's rooting these beautiful experiences that we have in our dreams and imagination into reality. It's not cutting off imagination. It's not cutting off the dream. It's making it rooted and stable, and it's grounding it in integrity. So what's real, what's projected, what can actually be built? These squares are going to be impressing that upon us. The overall tone of, and then again, as I mentioned, we end on a full moon in Sagittarius. That's going to bring in a little bit more optimism for a full moon. Sure, it's still a full moon. It's a moment of illumination and realization. But the full moon in Sagittarius is going to call us to see other perspectives, to embody, the experience of other people, to learn more, to visit more places and expand our awareness. And so it's a very philosophical full moon, and it's a great way to kind of make sense of everything that's going to be going on this month. The overall tone of May is very deep, it's very penetrating, it's a month of emotional depth, a lot of mental breakthroughs and perception breakthroughs are available to us. There is some value restructuring going on. Taurus is great for grounding the emotional body, and having a physical practice will be, as always, very important. Smell the roses, really chew your food and experience your food. Really hug your friend and experience that. Be in your senses, and I think Mars in Taurus really amplifies that. Not in your senses like, I'm overdoing it, I'm drinking too much alcohol, I'm eating too much sugar. No, like go listen to bird song, be in nature, these things that are actually very uplifting. Um, Aries and Gemini are going to be accelerating identity shifts and perception upgrades. So we really need that grounding from the Taurus energy. And Pluto turning retrograde, the deeper message is that the future's not being built externally, it's being built from the inside out. As you can see, the artwork I've created. Oh yeah, I've got my eagle there. The artwork I've created, if you're watching the YouTube version of this, is quite dark with Pluto here and the moon, and our little shadow selves here going through a portal, and us really aiming our arrow, being focused, standing on the lives that we used to have, and transforming ourselves. And it's a powerful reminder that, this might be sort of a dark period in terms of transition and growth, and but it's very necessary. And similar to what I was talking about with pain being sort of precipitating growth and new life, it's not a punishment. It's really not a punishment to experience discomfort and pain. It's part of the process. It's a rite of passage, really. And if we do things right, if we look after ourselves through it, that pain can be such a source of strength ahead, as you move ahead. It can really show you what you're made of. So don't disregard the discomfort, don't disregard the sometimes being in pain, but do be gentle with yourself, look after yourself, rely on your self-care practices. Keep it simple. People think that healing is this grand event, and there are wonderful events that people go to and they have powerful perspective shift. But actually, healing is in the day-to-day minutiae. It's in taking those few minutes to do some deep breaths. It's in taking, the time to actually consider what thoughts you're allowing to be the landscape of your creative abilities or your mind. It's about having, 2 minutes in the morning to just stretch. We have learned how to, in our society, make everything aesthetic, make everything look perfect on the outside. And it's draining us because that's not sustainable. To roll around on the floor and stretch about and have a little bit of breathing and have your own little messy routine, as long as it's consistent, that is the most important part, is just putting those self-care coins into the piggy bank every day, even if it's just a penny. All right, my friends, I'm sending you lots of love. If you would like to see how the energies are specifically affecting you, an astrology report might be beneficial in mapping what's going to be going on for you. If you're having a lot of experiencing a lot of turmoil and you need a little focus, a session with me might be beneficial, including an energy session. I work with people who are feeling very drained energetically, very overwrought, having a lot of emotional feelings. I help people to really transform, their experience of that. And of course, my life coaching sessions are about mapping out goals for oneself. So if any of those things feel aligned for you, you can check out my website, www.rebeccaconran.com, as well as if you enjoy these reports and you want to participate in my weekly energy report, which is kind of like it's like this, but we break down the day-to-day transits. And also, I provide a ritual for the week to really ground the energy. That is also available on my website. It's going to be linked in the show notes. And it's £10 a month, so I think it's about $14. And so that might be a way to deepen your spiritual practice right now. In any case, I look forward to speaking to you next month on the June astrology report. And stay tuned because I'm interviewing quite a few people this month who I really love on a few subjects that I think are really helpful around rewiring the mind and energy healing. So stay tuned to those that are coming up. Lots of love then. Bye bye.